When George W. Bush announces his choice as a running mate officially, it'll be something of an anticlimax given the fact that we know today who it is. Be that as it may be, Mr. Cheney's going to get a good going over by the press, and certainly the Democrats. It'll be the same when Mr. Gore announces his running mate. Mr. Bush has chosen a long-time member of the Republican establishment in Dick Cheney. The basics from ABC's Morton Dean.
Taking my time, I'm obviously making...
One of the reasons Dick Cheney appeals to George W. Bush is how very comfortable Cheney is in high places. For years, he was one of Washington's political elite. After a slow start, Cheney says he flunked out of Yale. He made up for lost time. A youthful Cheney held several positions in the Nixon administration, but it was at the Ford White House where he moved onto the fast track, assistant to the president. Then at age 34, chief of staff, the gatekeeper to the Oval Office. Following Jimmy Carter's defeat of Ford, Cheney returned to Wyoming, but soon was on his way back to Washington to serve 6 terms in the House. From a reliably conservative state, his voting record was reliably conservative, opposed abortion and gun control, supported prayer in the schools.
He is a conservative. He's always been a conservative.
Dick, welcome aboard.
President Bush plucked Cheney from a leadership role in the House to become Secretary of Defense. The nomination was well received, even though he had not served in the military. During the Vietnam conflict, Cheney received 4 student deferments and another because his wife was pregnant. Under Cheney, the Pentagon moved aggressively, the invasion of Panama, the Gulf War, but he also presided over shrinking the number of U.S. military bases. As Secretary of Defense, he said gay lifestyle was incompatible with military service. At times, Cheney's name was mentioned as a possible presidential candidate, but his health interfered, 3 mild heart attacks and a quadruple bypass. Colleagues and friends say he is not only comfortable in high places, but is basically an unpretentious person.
He's very unpretentious. During the Gulf War and when he was Secretary of Defense, he does the family shopping at the grocery store, and he made the dinners that they had time to eat at the house.
And no doubt, George W. Bush believes that's just the kind of trait voters will find appealing in November. Morton Dean, ABC News, New York.
George Stephanopoulos, our political analyst, joins us now. This will get flogged to death in the next little while, but let me start with you. Good, bad, or maybe even indifferent?
My guess is no harm, no foul. I mean, obviously there are real strengths here. But Secretary Cheney has a heavyweight resume. He's a serious choice, and it shows that Bush took the decision seriously, and he balances Bush's lack of experience in foreign affairs. He also secures the conservative base, and the Bush people are focused on that. Democrats are already preparing their lines of attack, though.
He doesn't bring any real estate, doesn't bring a state.
Well, that can be a virtue. They can say this wasn't a political decision. We're focusing on governing, not politics.
Not a great campaigner.
Well, he's been out there. He was thinking of running before 95 and 96. He decided to back away. And some people were talking about in Washington when he was there over the July 4th weekend, he was already starting the glad-handing, so maybe he had this in mind.
Now, you've been making a lot of phone calls. I know you always do. The Democrats, in some respects, have got their message already honed. What is it?
They do. First of all, they breathe a sigh of relief. Their message is, this is an old choice. It's retro. It's going back to the past. Mr. Bush's choice, President Bush's choice. Secondly, that it's not a bold choice. He didn't go for a pro-choice running mate like Governor Ridge or his former adversary, John McCain.
And the loyalty question.
He is deeply, deeply loyal. That's what Bush cared about the most. He wanted someone he could get along with. The challenge for Bush is when he explains this decision to say this was really his choice, and to explain that, and that the fix wasn't in from the start.
Now, the thing I hear from you, and I beg you to be short on this, is it looks like a man who might be fine once in office, but he's got to get into office.
He's got to get into office, but you know, vice presidents usually don't make all that much difference unless they make a mistake in the campaign.
As history shows us. Thank you, George, very much. George Stephanopoulos, ABCNews.com, has a lot about this, including lots of place and time for you to debate the selection, as everybody in the press will do now quite vigorously.